They'll point you toward the cliffs of Moher, toward the Ring of Kerry, toward the same overrun destinations that every tourist has photographed a million times. The buses line up, the crowds jostle, and everyone goes home with identical memories of identical views. But here's what they never mention, what they keep hidden because there's no profit in revealing places that haven't been commercialized. Ireland has coastal towns so beautiful they seem impossible. Places where the Atlantic meets the land in ways that photographs can't capture and words struggle to describe. These aren't the famous spots, these are the hidden ones. Villages where the beaches are empty because nobody knows they exist, where the property prices haven't inflated to insanity, where you can still experience coastal Ireland as it was before everything became a brand. Today I'm revealing 10 of these impossible coastal towns, and by the end you'll wonder why anyone visits anywhere else. So subscribe and let's start. Number 10. Bunmahon, County Waterford. We begin on the Waterford coast, on what's known locally as the Copper Coast for the mining that once made this area industrially significant. Bunmahon sits beside a cove of striking beauty, with red sandstone cliffs that glow in sunset light and a beach that would be famous if it were anywhere more accessible. The village itself seems to have been forgotten by the modern world, which is precisely what makes it worth discovering. The approach to Bunmahon takes you past the ruins of the copper mines that operated here throughout the 19th century. These industrial relics add something unexpected to the coastal scenery, romance and melancholy mixed with natural beauty in ways that pure landscape can't achieve. The engine houses stand roofless against the sky, their stone walls weathered by nearly 2 centuries of Atlantic storms. The mine buildings decay slowly on the cliff tops, while the sea works at the cliffs from below, creating a landscape where human history and geological time interweave visibly. The beach at Bunmahon is exceptional by any standard you care to apply. The sand is golden, fine-grained, sheltered by headlands that reduce wave action and create swimming conditions safer than exposed Atlantic beaches further west. The cove faces south, capturing whatever sunshine the Irish weather provides and warming quickly on clear days. But Breers dans la Messos, the rock pools at either end provide hours of exploration for those who enjoy marine life, with anemones and crabs and small fish that children and adults alike find endlessly fascinating. The cliffs that bracket the beach deserve exploration beyond casual glancing. The red sandstone layers tell geological stories spanning hundreds of millions of years. The sea caves that erosion has carved into the cliff base can be explored at low tide by those willing to get their feet wet. The cliff path provides walking with views that extend along the coast in both directions, toward Tramore to the east and toward Dungarvan to the west. The village itself is tiny, perhaps 200 permanent residents with a pub that serves the community year-round and visitors when they find their way here. The shop handles basic provisions. The minimum infrastructure that makes year-round living possible exists without the overdevelopment that destroys what makes coastal villages worth visiting. The scale is human, intimate, the kind of community where everyone knows everyone and newcomers are noticed, but not unwelcome. Property prices in Bunmahon have stayed remarkably affordable compared to more famous coastal locations. Houses in the village range from 140,000 to 200,000 euros, depending on condition and position. Cottages needing renovation can be found for less. The prices reflect the area's relative obscurity rather than any deficiency in quality. For anyone seeking coastal living without coastal premiums, Bunmahon offers genuine opportunity that the market has somehow overlooked. The Copper Coast designation, which recognizes the geological and industrial heritage of the area, has brought some attention without bringing the crowds that attention usually generates. The geopark status provides context for understanding the landscape, while keeping the infrastructure light and the commercialization minimal. You can learn about the geology and the mining history through interpretation panels and a small visitor center, but the experience remains focused on the place itself, rather than on the apparatus of tourism. The climate on the Waterford coast is notably milder than the west, with less rain and more sunshine hours than Atlantic-facing areas. The statistics show around 800 millimeters of annual rainfall compared to 1,200 or more in Galway or Kerry. The south-facing aspect captures warmth when sun appears. And the growing season extends longer than you'd expect this far north. Gardens flourish with plants that would struggle in exposed western locations. The physical comfort that mild climate provides becomes increasingly valuable as bodies age. Number 9. Mullaghmore, County Sligo. To the northwest now, to a village that sits on a headland with views that seem almost calculated to astonish. Mullaghmore faces the Atlantic beneath the dramatic silhouette of Ben Bulben, the flat-topped mountain that dominates the Sligo coastline and inspired Yeats to some of his most famous imagery. The combination of sea, mountain, and sky creates compositions that seem too perfect to be accidental, as if someone designed this place specifically to demonstrate what coastal beauty could achieve. That is, the harbour at Mullaghmore shelters fishing boats and pleasure craft in a natural inlet that has served mariners for centuries. The pier provides walks with views back toward the land, where Ben Bulben rises in its peculiar, flat-topped magnificence, and forward toward the ocean, where the Atlantic stretches uninterrupted toward the Americas. The surf breaks offshore attract surfers who've discovered the quality of the waves here, though the crowds remain manageable compared to more famous breaks in Sligo and Donegal. Classybon Castle stands on the headland overlooking the village, a 19th century structure built in the Scottish baronial style that would be merely picturesque if it weren't associated with tragedy. Lord Mountbatten was murdered by the IRA while fishing from this bay in 1979, an event that brought unwanted international attention to a village that preferred obscurity. The castle remains private, visible from the beach and the headland walks, but inaccessible to visitors, adding Gothic drama to the coastal scenery without demanding engagement. The beach at Mullaghmore stretches in a curve of golden sand that would cost significant money to access in more developed countries. The strand is wide at low tide, revealing sand ripples and shells, and the occasional piece of driftwood that Atlantic storms have delivered. The swimming is good when weather permits, with the harbour providing some shelter from the strongest currents. The walking extends for kilometres along the strand and onto the headland beyond, where the views expand to include the Donegal Mountains to the north. The relationship between the village and Ben Bulben deserves particular attention because it shapes everything about the Mullaghmore experience. The mountain is visible from almost everywhere in the village, its distinctive profile changing character with each shift in light and weather. Morning sun illuminates the eastern face. Evening light catches the limestone cliffs in gold. Cloud shadow moves across the slopes in patterns that hold attention for hours. The mountain provides a constant presence, a reference point, a reminder that this landscape has dimensions beyond the merely coastal. Property prices in Mullaghmore have increased as the village's beauty has become more widely known, but they remain below equivalent coastal locations in more famous areas. Houses range from 160,000 to 240,000 euros, depending on size and position. Properties with direct sea views or Ben Bulben views command premiums that seem justified once you've experienced what those views provide. The prices represent genuine value for what you receive, coastal living beneath one of Ireland's most dramatic mountains, in a community that functions year-round rather than only during tourist season. The community in Mullaghmore is small but welcoming, with a permanent population of perhaps 300 people, swelling in summer when holiday homes fill and visitors arrive for the beaches and the surfing. The seasonal variation creates economic activity that supports year-round services, including a hotel, several restaurants and cafes, and a shop that handles more than basic provisions. The community has resisted the kind of development that would destroy what makes the place special, maintaining a balance between economic viability and environmental preservation that many coastal villages have lost. The surfing culture at Mullaghmore adds a dimension that distinguishes it from purely traditional coastal villages. The big wave surfing that happens offshore when Atlantic storms generate suitable conditions has attracted international attention and a community of surfers who appreciate both the waves and the village that provides access to them. This surfing presence brings younger energy to a village that might otherwise skew older, creating social mix and activity that pure retirement destinations lack. Number 8. Portmagee, County Kerry. To Kerry now, and to a village that serves as the gateway to the Skellig Islands but deserves recognition for far more than mere gateway status. Portmagee sits on a narrow channel facing Valentia Island, with views across the water that seem to belong in travel photography rather than real life. The colors of the water, shifting through shades of blue and green that seem almost tropical, combined with the painted houses of the village, create scenes that visitors photograph compulsively. The harbour at Portmagee is a working fishing port where boats still land catches that find their way to local restaurants within hours of leaving the water. The authentic maritime economy gives the village character that tourist-dependent places lack entirely. The fishermen and their families provide community roots that have survived the transition to tourism without being overwhelmed by it. You can watch the boats unload, talk to the men who work them, and eat what they've caught all in the same day. The Skellig connection brings visitors who take the boats to Skellig Michael for the famous monastic settlement, that impossible collection of beehive huts clinging to a rock pyramid in the Atlantic that has been called one of the wonders of the medieval world. The boats depart from Portmagee's harbour early in the morning, returning in the afternoon with passengers who've experienced something that can't be replicated anywhere else on Earth. But many visitors discover that Portmagee itself deserves more than the brief stop that most allow between arriving and boarding boats. And the village has developed services that cater to visitors while remaining genuinely livable. Restaurants serving seafood that was swimming hours earlier. Pubs with traditional music sessions that attract local musicians rather than performing for tourists. Accommodation ranging from simple bed and breakfasts to comfortable hotels and the amenities that daily life requires. The bridge connecting Portmagee to Valentia Island provides access to additional exploration that could occupy weeks rather than hours. The island contains gardens, lighthouses, historic sites, and coastal walks that extend the territory beyond what Portmagee alone offers. The combination creates options that suit every preference and energy level, from gentle strolls to serious hiking. The village's appearance is particularly striking, with houses painted in bright colours that seem almost Caribbean until you remember you're at 52 degrees north latitude. The colour tradition reflects a practicality that became aesthetic. Different colours helped fishermen identify their homes from the water in an era before street numbers and GPS. The practical origin has become a visual signature that makes Portmagee instantly recognisable. Property prices in Portmagee reflect Kerry's general desirability, but remain below the heights reached in Dingle or Killarney. Houses in the village range from €150,000 to €220,000, depending on condition and position. The prices buy entry to a genuine working village in one of Ireland's most spectacular coastal settings, with the Skellig Islands visible on clear days and the Atlantic present in every direction you look. The climate in this part of Kerry is mild throughout the year, moderated by the Gulf Stream that keeps temperatures comfortable even in winter months. Frost is rare enough to be remarkable when it occurs. The vegetation stays green through all seasons. The growing season extends nearly continuously for gardeners willing to work with the conditions. Number 7. Roundstone, County Galway. To Connemara now. To a village that artists have been trying to capture for generations without quite succeeding. Roundstone sits on the edge of a bay that opens westward toward America, with the 12 Bens Mountains rising behind and islands scattered across the view ahead. The setting combines elements that shouldn't work together, but somehow create a whole greater than any part. The light in Roundstone has a quality that defies description, but rewards endless observation. The Atlantic weather creates conditions that shift minute by minute, with sunbeams breaking through clouds to illuminate patches of sea or mountain while everything else remains in shadow. The visual drama never stops, never settles into predictability, because Connemara weather refuses to be boring. You could photograph the same view 100 times and capture 100 different images. The village itself is small, perhaps 300 permanent residents, clustered around a harbour where fishing boats still work and the catch still lands fresh. The buildings have that painted stone Connemara character. White walls bright against grey skies, colours that sing when sunshine briefly arrives and glow with mysterious depth when cloud prevails. The scale is human, the atmosphere authentic, the beauty unmanufactured. The beach at Dogs Bay, just south of the village, is frequently cited among Ireland's finest, and with good reason. The sand is actually composed of tiny shell fragments rather than conventional silica, creating a texture and colour unlike ordinary beaches. The white of the shell sand against the blue-green of the water produces compositions that seem to belong in the Caribbean rather than on the Atlantic coast of Ireland. The curve of the bay creates sheltered swimming conditions when weather permits. The views toward the islands and mountains complete a scene that seems too beautiful for this latitude. Shh. Subscribe now to prove these videos actually help and make sense, or keep visiting the overcrowded beaches while places like Roundstone wait in beautiful emptiness. Your choice entirely, but future you might have opinions about which was wiser. The craft tradition in Roundstone adds cultural dimension to the natural beauty. Malachy Kearns' Bodhran workshop has made the village famous among traditional musicians worldwide. The handmade drums produced here are considered among the finest available, used by professional musicians who could afford any instrument but choose these. Visiting the workshop provides insight into craft traditions that survive through quality rather than nostalgia. Property prices in Roundstone are higher than inland Connemara, but remain remarkable for such beauty. Houses in the village range from 160,000 to 230,000 euros. Properties with bay views command premiums that seem justified once you've experienced what those views provide. The prices represent genuine value compared to equivalent coastal beauty elsewhere in Europe, where similar settings would cost multiples of these figures. The community includes artists, musicians, and creative types who've settled here precisely because of the light and landscape that make the village special. The creative presence gives social options that purely traditional villages lack, creating a community that values both heritage and innovation. Retirees interested in art, music, or crafts find kindred spirits here. Number 6. Ballintoy, County Antrim, crossing to Northern Ireland now, onto a village on the Causeway coast that combines dramatic geology with a scale intimate enough to feel human rather than overwhelming. Ballintoy sits above a harbour that featured in Game of Thrones as the Iron Islands, which brought some attention but hasn't destroyed the atmosphere that made it worth filming here in the first place. The harbour at Ballintoy is reached by a steep, winding road that discourages casual visitors and their large vehicles. The effort required to access the harbour keeps the crowds manageable, even during peak summer season, when the nearby Giant's Causeway draws millions. Those who make the descent find a tiny cove with limestone formations that create a landscape unlike anywhere else on the island. White rock against dark sea in patterns that seem almost designed. The coastline around Ballintoy includes some of the most dramatic geology in Ireland, formations that tell stories spanning hundreds of millions of years. White Rock's beach stretches east toward Portrush with chalk cliffs that gleam against the dark sea, their whiteness almost luminous on grey days. Carrick-a-Reda rope bridge hangs over a chasm that seems too narrow and too deep to be real, connecting mainland to island on cables that test visitors' nerve. The basalt formations that culminate at the Giant's Causeway begin their appearance on the headlands near the village. The village itself is tiny, barely 100 permanent residents, with a church, a tea room, and the minimum infrastructure that visitor service requires. The scale feels almost abandoned compared to more developed tourism areas, and which is precisely its appeal for those seeking escape from crowds and commercialization. You can walk the village in minutes, but the landscape surrounding it could occupy weeks of exploration. The church at Ballintoy deserves particular attention because it demonstrates how human presence can enhance rather than diminish natural landscape. The small white building sits above the harbour, with views across the water to Scotland on clear days. The simplicity of the structure, its whitewashed walls and modest scale, complements rather than competes with the dramatic geology surrounding it. Property prices in Ballintoy are remarkably affordable for such spectacular location. Houses in the village range from £120,000 to £180,000. The prices reflect Northern Ireland's generally lower property values compared to the Republic, creating opportunity for those who don't mind the jurisdictional difference. The currency difference adds complexity, but also opportunity depending on exchange rates. The climate on the Antrim coast is notably different from Western Ireland, with less rainfall and more sunshine hours than Atlantic-facing areas. The statistics show significant advantages over Galway or Kerry for total sunshine and dry days. The Gulf Stream keeps winters mild despite the northern latitude. The summer days are long, with light extending late into the evening. Number 5. Downing's, County Donegal. Back to the Republic now, to a village on the Rosgirl Peninsula that seems to belong in a different country entirely. Out and Downing's faces Sheephaven Bay, with views across water of impossible blue-green that seems Mediterranean transplanted to the Atlantic. Colours that shouldn't exist at this latitude, but somehow do. The beach at Tranarosan near Downing's is among Ireland's finest by any measure you want to apply. A sweep of golden sand backed by dunes that provide shelter from the winds that can make exposed beaches uncomfortable stretches for over a kilometre along the coast. The swimming is good when weather cooperates, with the bay providing some protection from the strongest Atlantic swells. The walking extends along the strand and onto the headland beyond, where views expand to include the whole sweep of the bay. The Atlantic Drive is a circuit road around the Rosgill Peninsula that provides views which accumulate to almost too much beauty to process in a single journey. Every bend reveals a new composition of sea and cliff and distant mountain. The road is narrow, winding, and completely unsuited to tour buses, which keeps the traffic manageable and the experience intimate. You can drive it in an hour, but should allow half a day to properly appreciate what it offers. The village of Downings has services that make year-round living practical in ways that some remote coastal locations can't match. Shops handle daily needs and more. Pubs provide social life and traditional music of genuine quality. Restaurants serve visitors and locals with menus that reflect the seafood available from local waters. The community has a vibrancy that some remote coastal villages lack, with events and activities throughout the year rather than only during tourist season. The golf course at Downings deserves mention because it demonstrates how recreational infrastructure can enhance rather than diminish natural landscape. The links course uses the terrain rather than reshaping it, creating holes that work with the dunes and the coastline in ways that manufactured courses never achieve. The views from the course extend across the bay to mountains that seem to float above the water. Property prices in Downings are remarkably affordable given the coastal beauty that surrounds the village. Houses range from €130,000 to €190,000 depending on size and position. Well, the prices reflect Donegal's distance from Dublin and the employment centres that drive property values elsewhere in Ireland. For remote workers or retirees, that distance is irrelevant, making the prices pure opportunity rather than compromise. The climate in this part of Donegal is Atlantic, which means mild temperatures year-round and substantial rainfall that keeps the landscape green. The compensation for the rain is the extraordinary clarity of light that follows it, creating conditions that make even ordinary scenes appear extraordinary. The air after rain has a freshness that city dwellers have forgotten exists. Number 4. Allihies, County Cork. To the Beara Peninsula now, to a village at the end of the road that feels like the end of the world in the best possible sense. Now, Allihies sits beneath the ruins of copper mines that once made this remote peninsula industrially significant, drawing thousands of workers to extract ore from mountains that now stand empty and beautiful. The beach at Ballydonegan, just below Allihies, is a sweep of sand and shingle in a colour that's been called coral by some visitors, referring to the crushed shells that give it an unusual pinkish hue, unlike conventional beaches. The strand faces west, toward the setting sun, creating evening displays that seem designed for maximum drama. The swimming is challenging in the Atlantic conditions that prevail here, with currents that demand respect and water temperatures that require commitment, but the beach walking and the scenery reward any visit, regardless of whether you enter the water. The mine ruins that dot the hillsides above Allihies tell a story of 19th century industry that's hard to imagine in such a remote location now. The engine houses stand roofless against the sky, their stone walls built to last centuries and apparently succeeding. Thousands of workers once lived here, extracting copper ore that went to smelters in Wales aboard ships that navigated these dangerous waters. When the ore ran out and the prices collapsed, the workers left, emigrating to mines in Montana and Michigan, where their skills remained valuable, even if their homeland could no longer use them. The village today has perhaps 200 permanent residents, with services that include a pub, famous among those who know it, for traditional music sessions that happen because musicians want to play, rather than because tourists expect performance. The shop handles basics and some surprises. Accommodation ranges from hostels serving hikers to holiday homes scattered across the hillsides. The scale is small enough that community forms naturally around the limited gathering places. The Bearaway walking trail passes through Alahis, connecting the village to the broader network of paths that traverse the peninsula. The walking options range from gentle strolls along the beach to serious mountain hiking that tests fitness and navigation skills. The landscape rewards effort with views that expand at every elevation gain. Your property prices in Alahis are genuinely affordable, despite the spectacular setting that surrounds the village. Houses range from 120,000 to 180,000 euros, depending on condition and position. Cottages needing renovation can be found for less. The prices reflect the remoteness that makes employment-based living impractical for most people. For those whose income doesn't depend on local opportunities, the affordability is a gift that more accessible locations can't match. The climate at Alahis is mild year-round, moderated by the Gulf Stream that keeps frost rare and vegetation lush even through winter months. The rainfall is substantial, as you'd expect from Atlantic-facing location, but the peninsula's exposed position means weather clears quickly after fronts pass, but creating those combinations of sun and cloud that make Western Irish light so remarkable for photography and painting. Number 3. Clogherhead, County Louth, moving to the east coast now, to a village that demonstrates how accessible beauty can remain affordable when nobody's promoting it. Clogherhead sits on a headland, barely an hour north of Dublin, with beaches that rival anything in Ireland, yet remain unknown to most Dublin residents who drive past without stopping. The beach at Port Oriel stretches below the village with sand and rock pools that would draw enormous crowds anywhere famous. The strand faces east, catching morning sun and providing sheltered conditions when westerly winds make Atlantic beaches uncomfortable. The fishing harbour at the north end provides maritime character that pure beach villages lack, with boats that still work and catches that still land. The headland walks offer views along the coast that extend to the Mournes in the north and toward Howth and Dublin in the south. On clear days, the panorama includes mountains and coastline across at least 3 counties. The walking is easy, suitable for all fitness levels, with benches positioned at viewpoints where you might want to rest and contemplate. The village itself is genuinely Irish in ways that tourist-oriented coastal places can't match. The community exists for itself rather than for visitors. The shops serve local needs rather than tourist expectations. The pubs pour pints for regulars who've been drinking there for decades. The prices in those shops and pubs reflect local incomes rather than holiday budgets. The experience is of authentic Ireland rather than performed Ireland. The proximity to Dublin creates economic possibilities that more remote locations can't offer. The commute to the city is manageable for those who don't need to make it daily. The option to access city services, entertainment, and employment while living beside a beautiful beach exists here in ways that Western locations can't replicate. Property prices in Clogherhead are remarkable for such proximity to Dublin. Houses range from 150,000 to 220,000 euros, depending on size and position. The prices would be multiples of these figures if the village were properly promoted, but nobody's promoting it because there's no profit in revealing places that haven't been developed. The obscurity is protective by keeping prices accessible to those who discover the place through word of mouth rather than marketing. The climate on the East Coast differs from the West in ways that matter for daily living. Less rainfall means more usable outdoor days. More sunshine hours mean better conditions for gardening and outdoor activity. The temperatures are similar to Western Ireland, but the precipitation difference is significant. Number 2. Killala, County Mayo. To Mayo now, to a village that combines historical significance with coastal beauty at prices that seem almost aggressive in their affordability. Killala sits on a bay where French forces landed in 1798, beginning a brief rebellion that still echoes in local memory and national history. The bay at Killala provides a protected swimming environment, unusual for Atlantic Ireland. The enclosed shape of the bay reduces the swells that make open coast swimming challenging. The beach stretches for several kilometers with sand that rivals any in the country, wide at low tide and perfect for walking, regardless of swimming intentions. The views across the bay toward the Sligo Mountains create compositions that change with every shift in weather and light. The village has a round tower that dates to early Christian Ireland, standing complete with its conical roof intact, a reminder that this place has been significant for over a millennium. The tower provides a landmark visible from the bay and from miles around, a connection to history that few Irish coastal villages can match. The cathedral ruins beside the tower add ecclesiastical weight to the ancient site. The French connection from 1798 gives Killala historical significance that extends beyond local memory. General Humbert landed here with over 1,000 French soldiers, briefly established a Republic of Connaught, and marched inland before eventual defeat. The route he followed is marked and can be traced. The events he set in motion influenced Irish history for generations. Walking through Killala is walking through layers of history compressed into a single small place. Property prices at Killala are genuinely remarkable for coastal property in any Irish context. Houses in the village range from 90,000 to 150,000 euros, depending on condition and size. The prices reflect in Mayo's distance from employment centres rather than any deficiency in the village itself. For anyone whose income doesn't depend on local opportunities, the prices represent extraordinary value. The services in Killala include a pub that serves as community gathering place, a shop that handles daily needs, and the minimum infrastructure for year-round living. Ballina, the nearby town with full services including a hospital, is only 10 minutes away. The combination works well. Village beauty for daily life, town services nearby when needed. The climate at Killala is Atlantic maritime, with mild temperatures year-round and rainfall that keeps everything green. The bay position provides some shelter from the worst Atlantic weather. The summer days are long at this northern latitude. Number 1, Ardmore, County Waterford. And so we arrive at my number 1. A village that combines everything I've been describing into one concentrated location. Ardmore sits on a headland where the Celtic Sea meets the Irish coast, with ancient history stretching back 1,500 years, stunning beaches, mild climate, and prices that seem impossible given what you receive. The history of Ardmore begins with St. Declan, who established a monastery here in the 5th century, possibly before St. Patrick arrived in Ireland. The tradition holds that Declan brought Christianity to the day's people of this coast, before the more famous mission from Rome reached other parts of the island. The round tower from this early settlement still stands, one of the finest preserved in Ireland, its conical cap intact and its stonework defying the centuries. The cathedral ruins beside the tower contain Romanesque carvings of international significance, biblical scenes, and fantastical creatures rendered in stone by craftsmen 900 years ago. The quality of the carving suggests either master artists or exceptional local talent. The survival of these carvings through centuries of weather and warfare seems almost miraculous. The site draws those interested in early medieval art from across the world. The village descends from this ancient religious site to a blue flag beach where the swimming is safe and the views extend to the horizon in every direction. The strand curves between headlands that provide shelter and definition. The sand is golden and fine. The water is clean enough for the blue flag designation that recognizes quality. The combination of history above and beauty below creates something unique. The harbour shelters small boats, adding maritime character to the religious and recreational elements. The cliffs that bracket the bay provide walking trails with perspectives that reward every step. The cliff walk from the village to the monastic site offers views across the bay and inland to hills that roll gently toward the mountains. The climate at Ardmore is among the mildest in Ireland, earning its position in the sunny southeast that tourism marketing celebrates. The statistics show less rainfall than Western Ireland, more sunshine hours, warmer average temperatures. The south-facing position captures warmth when sun appears. The Gulf Stream maintains comfortable temperatures year-round. Frost is rare enough to be noteworthy when it occurs, and the gardens flourish with plants that would struggle elsewhere in Ireland. The vegetation stays lush through all seasons. The growing season extends nearly continuously for those interested in cultivation. The physical comfort that mild climate provides becomes increasingly valuable as bodies age and joints stiffen. Subscribe if you like this video.